Today we're going to talk weather safety planning, and I've got two of the experts with me today. I'm Rennie Vandeweghe from WDT. Joining me is Dax Cochran from WDT, and we've got Jim Digby. Jim, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody that may not know you all that well yet.
Hi, I'm Jim Digby. I am a producer, production manager by trade for quite some time, and I've handled a variety of different artists as they journey on the road, producing their live shows. I also do one-off type special event shows like Woodstock '99, things of that nature, and advocated for the creation of the Event Safety Alliance for us to be better advocates for safety in the live event space, and to realize the rules and regulations that we're already beholden to try to make those everyday commonplace applications within the live event space, and to create learning opportunities around safety in the live event space.
Awesome. And if you're trying to make a playlist of the productions that Jim's worked on, you could try and find you some Phil Collins, Linkin Park, Backstreet Boys, and Marilyn Manson, which is my favorite there.
Bolshoi Ballet.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. So you've been around. You've seen a lot of weather. You've seen a lot of probably safety incidents come up over time, and I know that's been a real big passion for you. We thank you for joining us today. Dax has been with WDT now for how long, Dax?
9 years.
You're dating yourself a little bit. Dax leads up our business development efforts in the outdoor event industry, and has worked with, we calculated a while back, thousands and thousands of festivals and sporting events, and getting them with a weather plan ready to go. And that's our theme today, is to kind of talk about what it takes to get prepared for an event and making sure that you're safe. So we'll kind of jump into some of the discussion here. Jim, you mentioned in your introduction that you've been a part of the Event Safety Alliance since its inception. Can you kind of tell us about the history of the ESA and its mission?
The long history of the ESA goes back to a moment in time when I was starting out in my first professional career in 1983, where a lighting fixture fell from the ceiling of the club that I was working in and accidentally killed a girl. Then, jump cut to 2011 at the Indiana State Fair, when the weather and other factors caused the death of 7 people and wounded 55 others. The wound from 1983 and my passion for the industry ignited a fire that was to, we've got to be better than this in the live event space. We who are producing the shows have a responsibility to our audiences and to those who are in our duty of care underneath the roof of the stage. And we don't have any processes or protocols in place that are industry-wide and industry accepted as the norm and promoted as something we have to do, and we need to do something about that. So with that energy and with the memory of what had happened early on in my professional career, and with the input of some movers and shakers in the industry, we were able to, in a very short time after the incident in Indiana, able to uplift a nonprofit advocacy group, the Event Safety Alliance, whose mission it is to create learning opportunities and refine the tools that we use to better implement safety around sites. That's as short as I can make that story.
Awesome, yeah. And Dax, you've been, as you mentioned, with WDT for 9 years, but we really, after that Indiana State Fair incident, found a need for weather as a big component of safety and planning, and you kind of took that head on. Tell us about how WDT got into that.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Digby met our CEO, Mike Iltz, at a venue manager's workshop. And through their discussions in the ESAs, growing awareness for better weather support at all of these events, we went and kind of looked at our toolbox. We already were doing a lot of the things, a lot of the products and services, mainly in maybe the energy space or utilities, but we had some of the pieces that we could begin to craft a solution that would work for outdoor events and production crews. And then from there, we just put our heads down and started working event by event. We hired forecasters, and we're hand jamming forecasts in the early days. And really, that's how we got our start. And then from there, we've leaned 100% back on the industry to tell us what to do next. So that's kind of how the evolution of where we are today. That's how we got to where we are, basically just through feedback and crafting it.
Yeah, and the initial aftermath of what had occurred in Indiana, I went on this journey for self-improvement, where there are no places as a production person to go out and gather the skills necessary in a formal way. And there's no requisite for those who take charge of live events. There's no prerequisite for safety. There's no currently prerequisite for planning. And in large part, those who would otherwise police the event are not looking for anything consistently across the board in the live event space. So I attended this training at the National Weather Center there at OU, and asked Mike, among many others, hey, I'm a producer and I'm looking at a computer screen or at my phone and measuring, trying to calculate for myself when that storm's going to get here. And I had recently had a lawyer tell me, well, you're not a meteorologist, and that's not going to hold up well in court. You need professional resources. And so I had proposed to these variety of folks the need for highly specialized, highly specific weather reporting to me, decision support tools around the thing that I do. We had learned that the National Weather Service doesn't declare it a severe storm until winds are at 56 or 58 miles an hour. And that far exceeds what I needed to know with respect to an event site where I've got pop-up tents around it and other threats that can become hazardous to those in attendance. And Mike picked up on it immediately and said, well, we already do that. We do that for transcontinental shipping. We do that for energy farms. It's not a big reach for us to be doing it for live events. And, it's WDT is arguably one of the most comprehensive decision support services on the planet. So we gave it a spin, and sure enough, it has become a tool by which many are able to do the right thing in the face of adverse weather conditions.
Sure. So if a new event's starting, or maybe they haven't even taken weather or event safety planning in consideration, what's the best way to get started? Where do they go? What do they do to get a plan up?
I mean, we were making it up as we went along in the early days, and effectively what we did was follow the risk assessment tool charting protocol by identifying the specific areas within the live event that are going to be affected by weather, and at what point those things needed to have action taken. I see that they put it up. So, so we determined, all right, what's the weather threat for the video wall or for the audio system? And hopefully what a good event planner is having done is, they're calling on an engineer or their vendor who will have called on an engineer to tell them, at wind speeds of X, we need to take our video wall down, or we need to fly the video wall to the ceiling, whatever the responsive measure might be. Someone of an engineering ilk has to have helped to determine what that next action should be and what the threshold for that action should be. And then by creating this chart and determining, these are my different assets, these are my different thresholds, we were then able to inform WDT of our, here's our needs. Let's work together to create the alerting mechanism by WDT into the event. And that resulted in WDT's, I think, weekly planners and daily planners, the combination of both of those processes being spelled out on paper first to get to an actionable plan. I often tell people, look, don't just go get the weather help. It doesn't do anything for you if you don't have a plan. It's one thing to, God forbid, you have to stand up in a court of law and say, well, I had the weather service. And it's another thing to say, well, I had the weather service and I had a plan and my team knew about the plan and everybody had a copy of the plan and everybody knew what to do when we reached threat level yellow. So it's, there are many components to this hazard approach here that need to be ticked. The boxes need to be ticked for before one can say I'm prepared for weather.
Sure, and there's a customization aspect to this too, because what you're working on today in Burbank is going to be probably a different setup than you might find in a summer festival in the Plains or whatever it is. It has a different threshold for which the wind maybe is dangerous level. And I know Dax, some of the work that you and WDT have done has been around creating products that move with the threat, so to speak.
Sure.
As events change.
And I think that's really, what we've been learning throughout this process. This service has evolved to be very robust and very flexible. But Jim nailed it on the head, and I think it's one of the catalysts on why we wanted to jump on and do this webinar. There's a lot of flexibility in there, but the more sophisticated you are from your safety planning standpoint, if in the very beginning you're coming up with your safety plans, you're making your trigger charts, you're establishing your communication structure and how that's going to stay organized. When you're doing all of those things, it makes the service so much more helpful because we see it, and we've even seen it with customers as the ESA has helped them evolve. Customers today with their level of sophistication compared to what they were 3 years ago, they're making really big strides. And all of that credit goes back to the ESA. And so, we at least have recognized the fact that, we don't want to say the weather can be a facade without a plan. I think I've said it a number of times, but we can get a lightning alert to anyone in the world, but if no one on your team knows what that means or what to do,
with it,
it's meaningful. So,
yeah. I think we, I'm proud of the work of the ESA and the partnership with WDT in the sense that, we've been able to help define the needs of the industry to your organization and others who might provide these services. And then, in response to putting those factors out there, the tools have been developed quite rapidly, and folks are taking them very seriously, as they should. We say that it wasn't weather that caused that tragedy in Indiana; it was the lack of an actionable plan, and that's a good thing because we can't change the weather; we can change the plan. We can create plans. So having actionable, non-subjective information to go on, provided by folks such as yourselves, does make our lives, those who produce the events and those who host the audiences, significantly easier, and it gives us a greater latitude to sleep at night. The old school way of pretending that you're the meteorologist is frankly no longer the reasonable baseline. The baseline now is you really should have professional services looking after your event. And then you really should have to be able to demonstrate that you have an actionable plan that you've coordinated with all of the different entities on the show site. It's not good enough for me as the guy holding the torch for the artist to have a plan. My plan needs to be looked at and overlaid with the venue's plan, which needs to be overlaid with the public authority having jurisdictions plan, so that we all know what's going to happen in the event of a threatening weather event. And that's part of what the ESA's mission is to help define those communications and teach those communications.
I find it frustrating and at times when I hear the story you said that there are still people that think they can play their own meteorologist and that's a safe way to approach an event. It's 2018. There are so many amazing technologies and services that have come out that have made communication fast, customizable. We can do all this together. And that's what I've enjoyed about working with the ESA too, is that I think we're all doing this with a servant's heart, a good attitude, and trying to make sure everybody's real safe.
I get the sense that we're all doing it for benevolent reasons, and that's that's the most important part of it for me as one of the founders of a nonprofit organization. The folks that we're in our dialogues with, the subject matter experts, everybody has contributed their time for free, benevolently. We're just there wanting to have the industry be in a better place, and WDT has been alongside of that for us. Granted, we've got great customer base now, but it's important that these tools are out there and that folks understand how to use them, and that the cell phone is not a weather measuring device or a weather alerting device. It takes real people with real understandings, because weather is complex, and it's significantly more complex than anyone who is an amateur thinks that it is. And that's where we get into trouble. We get into trouble with the mindset, well, I've been doing it like this for 20 years. Why should I change now? Indiana's why you should change now.
Sure. Well, I've had a few conversations here and there, and it's occurred to me more than once. There's some people that I think maybe some of it's just human nature. Some people just care more about weather than others by nature. And then I also get a sense sometimes there's people that are taking weather more seriously tend to have maybe had their scary weather experience, whatever that was. That doesn't mean there had to be a tragedy, but something rattled them. And then there's maybe some other people that maybe haven't had that kind of experience yet. I wonder, how much of that plays into it too.
Sure. So Jim, so going back to the ESA, what are some of the tools that you guys are providing for the educational component? I know that we have the conference that we worked on together here in Norman, the Severe Weather Summit. What kind of other gatherings and tools have you guys provided to the industry?
Well, yeah, sure. Let's start with that. As it relates to weather and planning for weather and demonstrating preparedness for weather, it is the Severe Weather Summit put on by the Event Safety Alliance every spring. The last week, third week, I think, of March before spring break and the spring break. And here at this event, we have subject matter experts from the National Weather Service, from some of the tools that are provided to for weather data, and our planners from the Event Safety Alliance, who help to teach how to create weather decision matrices, how to take that input. What do you do when the storm looks like it's going to veer off, and how do you make that announcement to the crowd? This is an important learning opportunity that folks walk away from those 2 days empowered to create their own plans and know where to get that data from to make those plans actionable. We have the annual Event Safety Summit, which takes place the week after Thanksgiving every year. This year, the 5th year, I believe, at Lidditz, in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, at the Rock Lidditz campus. We also do, this year we launched our regional crowd management learning opportunity, which stopped in Nashville, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Austin, Texas. And this was a 2-day learning opportunity about how to handle crowds and how to manage crowds, and what is crowd psychology, and how does crowd psychology play a part in the decisions that you have to make when it comes to, sadly, terroristic threats or weather or, unruly crowds or spontaneous crowds. All of those things we feel are, the kinds of events that we see more frequently than what happened in Las Vegas or that what happened in Orlando. Although those are headline grabbing and they're important important from the respect of planning for, they're not the things that are most frequently troublesome for us. Weather is, by and large, very frequently troublesome for us. And, crowd management is something that we need to be thinking about more frequently than those black swan type events.
Sure. Dex, a little bit about WeatherOps service. You've been providing a weather service to thousands of events and so forth. Give us a quick rundown of of some of those services?
Yeah, sure. So we've provided a full solution that's going to blend forecasting and alerting for entire production crews, and then we back all of this with 24/7 forecaster support. Um, the biggest thing with us, and I say the whole goal with any of this is to increase lead time so that people can implement plans, they can make confident decisions, and that's going to even in the face of weather, like Jim said before, we can't stop the weather from happening. So what this service intends to do is to keep people, in the know of what the potential is, what time to anticipate that impact, and then provide them with real meteorologist support to help guide them through those situations so that they can make confident decisions.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking here. I don't think we've received any questions. If anybody has a question, you're welcome to ask. You can leave it in the chat room or in the question and answer session. But if you have questions following this webinar, we invite you to, you can submit an email at marketing@wdtinc.com. There's our toll-free number available to you as well. And you can always visit our website at wdtinc.com. Jim Digby, thank you so much for joining us today. It's just really, really insightful information, and I want to thank you because we've made a lot of progress. There's still progress to be made in the safety realm, but you've really spearheaded that effort and been a great friend to WDT and helped us out a lot. So thank you for joining us today and for all your help.
Thanks for having me, Rennie. I hope all those out there who may be listening are inspired to make great plans and get great information and continue the mission of making sure that we let folks know that it's safe to come to shows and that we've got plans in place and the people operating those shows know what they're doing, and we're doing the right thing for them.
Looks like we may have
got one question here. So question was, how quick will storms be tracked, particularly pop-up thunderstorms that can come on quickly? That's a great question, and I can go ahead and answer that. So one of the great things about having a meteorologist watching versus just tracking your own radar on whatever free app you have on your phone is the fact that there are signals that thunderstorms may be developing well before they even show up on radar. And so that includes satellite. A lot of times we will use kind of these short range, high resolution models where we can start to get some lead time, an hour or 2 hours before the storm even forms, that the storm could be forming. And so with that kind of advanced technology on having thunderstorms, knowing that they're in the developing phase, and that we're expecting them through some technology that we have in-house here at WDT, we can keep posted with these even hours in advance before they even form.
Then we have another one that I think in the Q&A, Rennie, may be a little more suited for Jim.
Sure.
Ask it?
Yep. So Jim, so your trainings, are they for the layperson to attend, or are they safety-related items or programs that you can utilize to learn how to implement them at home for your events?
Well, I would argue that the ESA continues to make its learning opportunities available for the layperson. That we specifically talk at a level at which those who produce events are able to uptake the information. Meaning, we don't talk meteorological talk; we talk roadie talk or show producer talk. So yeah, I would argue that the Severe Weather Summit is at a layperson level. Though you wouldn't be when you left there. And we are developing currently another regional learning opportunity where we would take plan creation on the road, that learning opportunity on the road for folks to come and immerse themselves for 2 days on learning how to write the plans, not just specifically for weather, but certainly weather is an easy, tangible. And if you can write plans for weather, you can write plans for almost anything else, arguably. So yeah, we're there for you. It's eventsafetyalliance.org. There's so much information there. You might find yourself overwhelmed, but start there.
Excellent. All very good questions. Well, we thank the audience for joining us and taking some time out on this Wednesday afternoon, or I guess morning if you're on the West Coast, to listen about safety. Just a reminder that this is part 2 of a 4-part series from WDT and WeatherOps on a variety of topics with weather. And our next one should be quite interesting, on information on how you can profit from weather. So taking the knowledge of weather in certain businesses and actually turning it into profit for your company, and not thinking of it so much as a disruptor. And then and again, that's 2 weeks from today, May 23rd at the same time. 2 weeks after that, we'll hold our final webinar in this series, titled "What is Weather Risk Mitigation and How Much Does it Cost?" And so we'll get into some of the tools and services, a little bit of a deeper dive on what's available to manage your risk as it pertains to weather, and then talk about the all-important question of how much does it cost. So we'll
I'm coming back for that one.
Yeah. You might, maybe you'll yell at us. What? I didn't get a good deal. No, we always can take good care of Jim for sure. Thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it. And Dax, Jim, thanks for joining us today, and for all the participants.
Pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.